Hey, this is Samantha with Aesthetically Cannabis. Today we have Squishermen. Welcome, Matt and James. All right. So, where did the name Squishermen come from?
Oh, it's just kind of a high brainchild from when we were squishing, just by ourselves. We got together on nights and weekends and talked about squishing and had lots of inside jokes about it, essentially. But that's just one of them that came out of it and kind of stuck for a name for the company when we decided to go into business.
What made you want to start pressing rosin?
Well, as far as like professionally, when we, when the market first came online, there wasn't a lot of offerings out there, and what we had tried was pretty subpar. So we decided to throw our hat in as far as making it and just have a passion for it. We were growers and have always enjoyed growing and pheno selecting and just everything that comes with that portion of it, and making hash out of the plants that we've grown. So it's a passion of ours that we wanted to pursue professionally, and thought that we had something to offer considering what was on the market at the time. And there's a lot more on the market now, obviously, a lot of good other hash makers, but we still think that we're some of the best. So
Gotcha. And were y'all pressing beforehand?
Yeah, we were pressing our own flower rosin, and James had experience previously washing hash from his father, but we just kind of taught ourselves to wash with the aid of online resources like Frenchie Canoli's workshops, The Art of Hashish, which are great free resources to check out if you're interested in learning how to make hash yourself.
Nice. When did y'all start actually washing hash rosin full time?
Oh, I mean, when we started doing it more full time, it's only been 4 or 5 years since legalization. You really have to kind of have your own garden to have the material to work with to do that very much. Before then, we weren't growing, so it wasn't really available. But since we've started our gardens, which was basically like day one of legalization, we had the material to work with and just got more and more into hash making as time went on, and
And for the people that don't know what hash rosin is, or what's the difference with the bead show CO2 extracted, can you explain to them what that is?
Yeah, so hash is like a traditionally extracted resin head from cannabis. The old school method is kind of a dry sift extraction and then put together with heat, kind of by hand. And that's where a lot of the, traditional Moroccan hash and temple balls and stuff like that come in. And then refining it further, putting it into, more silk screens and pressing it through a rosin press. That's where you press out the hash oil, which is, solvent-less hash oil is technically what rosin is. Rosin's kind of a catch-all term for it, but it's the oil made from hash, extracted out of hash. So that's kind of the difference. We don't use any solvents to extract it, unlike BHO, which melts the resin heads with butane or propane or hexane or any number of different solvents that they then purge out of it, which we don't have that. So it's a little bit cleaner from the get-go, just because we don't include any solvents that have to be purged. But yeah.
Now, besides, rosin, live and cured, what else do you create?
We have several products. There's, FICO, which is it's like an RSO product. It's an edible product that is very concentrated, very strong. Most of the time used for people with like high pain or really high tolerance. We've gotten good feedback on that for people that have had shingles and cancer treatments, stuff like that. People that normally have to resort to strong doses of opiates and things to deal with their pain and ailments. but yeah, we make that. And we also make infused pre-rolls, bubble hash. We've got some traditional hash that, kind of mentioned temple balls and stuff like that we're working on that'll be coming to market soon.
I think that covers all the stuff that we make: infused pre-rolls, FICO, bubble hash. We'll have traditional temple balls on the way and rosin. That's pretty much all our offerings at this time.
Do y'all still have some more of that solvent-less squisher oil?
We do. That's another thing that we offer. It's essentially just rosin that's been melted down and decarbed so that you can take it orally like you can with FICO, or you could also dab it. The FICO is not something you should dab. All the solvents have been purged out of it, but it's definitely something that you should just take orally.
Not the best dabbing experience for the FICO. But that is, that's the draw of the squisher oils. You can dab it and then wait for your oral dose to process, to go through your digestive system and get into your bloodstream and start working. So in the meantime, you can have a dab and, kind of have that immediate onset. So that's definitely the draw for the squisher oil, solvent squisher oil. SSO is what we call it. Versus the FICO or RSO. But yeah.
Yeah, you're one of the few processors I see that's done that with solventless hash oil. Besides, the carts and stuff, yours is actual like dabbable, kind of like distillate, but definitely a lot better for you.
Yeah, we kind of saw a hole in the market. I mean, there are some other offerings out there, I think, but it's not as common as either a cart or just regular solventless concentrates, batter, and those sort of offerings, those consistencies, which obviously you have to have a rig. But, it's nice to be able to eat it. And a lot of people have, their intolerances with smoking and, sensitivities to smoking and stuff like that. So that's one of the big reasons that we offer the edible options, just to cater to those patients that aren't really able to smoke or don't want to smoke as much or vaporize.
How do you choose the flower you're gonna press?
Generally, we it's kind of based on farmers. We've worked with farmers that we know produce good flower, and so we kind of choose out of their gardens the things that we know will work for our purposes. There are certain strains that we've worked with in the past that we know don't work well, and we just generally don't go for those. But they would work well for pre-rolls or for bubble hash or certain other things that we make, RSO or FICO or whatever. But they just don't process well for rosin, so we kind of stay away from those sometimes. But
is it the strain or the way they grow it, or what exactly?
I think it's generally the cut of that strain, because other people, we'll just say Turple, for instance. It's not one that really anybody that we know is growing right now, but we've processed it in the past, and we've had great results with the rosin, and then other cuts of it we've processed, and it didn't process as well for rosin, so we made other, products out of it. We either made FICO or, released it as bubble hash or infused pre-rolls with it or whatever. So there are always other things you can do with it, but for rosin, there are certain strains that work well for us and certain strains that don't. But as far as selecting those strains, we just kind of follow the terpene profiles we're going for, and we know the farmers that we work with that grow them are going to grow quality products. So just kind of shop the terpene profiles that they have available.
Gotcha. Do you want to add to anything, Matt? I don't know.
Sure. To that, I would just say that not every strain is good for making hash, even if it produces really nice flower, or may work well for other sorts of extraction. Not every strain is a good hash strain, and that doesn't take away from the grower. Those strains might process well for other outfits, but we've just been kind of selecting the strains we know produce rosin that we can release. Some strains produce darker oil, and that's not always ideal for pressing into rosin. Judging rosin by its color isn't always the best indicator of quality, but typically the market wants lighter colored rosin. So, yeah.
Gotcha. And who have you done collaborations with?
Most of the farmers we work with are kind of smaller craft producers like ourselves. We don't work with a lot of like big outdoor farms or like giant indoor farms or anything like that. So BCC, Blue Collar Criminals, is one. I work there as a grower, and have a lot of insight on the strains that are there because I grow them firsthand. So we've worked with them pretty much since the get-go. Papa Jesus is another one that we've worked with quite a bit, and Superb, who you had on your podcast. We've worked with them a lot, and they grow a lot of great flower. And Apex Genetics. There's been several that we've worked with over the years, but those are kind of the stables that we've continued to work with, and they all grow great flower, and almost everything turns into great rosin.
What's your most favorite strain you have pressed so far?
Ooh, that's difficult. There's a lot of great strains. I mean, one that we have that's like our cut, and that will be in our garden, our single source garden soon, is Mr. Nasty, and that's one that we're really happy with. One that Matt Fino hunted, and we've both grown multiple times and had other people grow, and BCC's actually growing it right now, so that'll be kind of available in flower form soon as well, which is not something that we'll focus on as much, but we're open to share cuts with the growers that we know are good growers and that we've worked with in the past and stuff. So very possible that like the pheno cuts that we pheno hunt and that are in our gardens will end up with some of these flower focused producers and stuff like that. But yeah, Mr. Nasty is one that's been great for us. It's going to be in our garden, and we'll be making crosses with it and everything else.
Nice.
So.
And for the people that don't know, can you explain to them what the difference is between that live and cured rosin? Because I know you're one of the very few hash processors that actually labels it as live or cured.
Well, cured material has just been made from flour that's been dried as you would flour that you would smoke, whereas live material just gets frozen instead of being cured. So a lot of times in live rosin, you get more of the terpenes that are present in the live plant. During the curing process, some of those terpenes are more volatile than others, and you might not end up with the exact same terpene profile that you would with a live material. So fresh rosin material, making live rosin with that is just a more accurate depiction of the way the plant smells when it's alive. Some people like it more. It typically makes a nicer, blonder looking rosin too than cured. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the curing process does, as it implies, cures the resin heads as well, and a lot of them turn amber in the process instead of staying clear or milky as they do when they're live and fresh off the plant. So that's kind of where a lot of the color difference comes from too, is the oxidization of the resin heads from the plants and how old and things they are.
So when it comes to bubble hash, can that be from live and cured or just live?
Yeah, it's generally, so in our market, the nomenclature usually for bubble hash is usually a cured product, just because everybody calls their live bubble hash live heads, just to kind of make that difference. So if you do see bubble hash in the market, you're most likely going to find that it's cured bubble hash. So it's a lot more stable as far as being able to transport it. Like live heads, you definitely have to keep in a cooler or freezer or something like that to keep them from just gelling up and turning into a sheet of live heads that you can't really, portion out. Which if you're doing dabs, you can pull it apart or whatever. But if you're trying to put it in joints or on bowls or something like that, you might want the cured version that's easier to, scoop out and portion out and travel around with or whatever.
So is live heads and bubble hash the same? I know there's kind of a debate in that in the industry.
I mean, they're the same in the regard that, cured rosin and live rosin are the same. They're both bubble hash, but they're definitely different consistencies and different handling practices and ways of consuming them. So it's different, but I mean, the process essentially is the same in how you produce them. wash it and put them through your bubble bags and put them in a freeze dryer, and it comes out either live heads or cured heads. So, yeah.
And when we see those numbers in the back of like with the strain name, is it because you washed it differently, or what exactly?
The Micron sizes, I assume. No, I mean, well, it generally, if it's labeled differently, it's because it's a different spectrum of micron sizes. A lot of people, ourselves included, release full spectrum, which is, you know, their full spectrum and our full spectrum might not be the exact micron sizes. It depends on what bag company they get their bags from and everything else. But generally, it's like 45 to 160 U. And that's kind of the range that most people find acceptable for consuming for like smokable hash. Above and below that, it's usually considered like food grade. So that's the full spectrum usually. And then within that, people will further separate the spectrums. We generally, I don't know, most of our releases nowadays aren't even the full spectrum. They're 73 to 159. So we cut out the 45 to 72 micron sizes because it's usually just smaller, darker, not as quality resin heads as the larger, and it's not as big of a yield to justify including it. You know, it just lowers the quality of the overall batch and only adds like, you know, minimal amount of grams to the batch. So we've started excluding that. But yeah, full spectrum. And some people do really limited, like, you know, 90 to 120 U releases and really, you know, release different spectrums for one batch, like a bunch of different SKUs, I guess. But we generally don't do that. Our batches are such small batches anyways, that, you know, even if we did full spec, it's going to be kind of a small, limited quantity batch. So we just do like usually one spectrum for each release that we do. Maybe when we get into our live, or, you know, our single source garden a little bit more, we'll have, you know, more material to separate those micron sizes more. But generally nowadays we just do like 73 to 160, right in that micron size. That's kind of our sweet spot.
I would like to add one thing about the bubble hash. When you hear people talk about live heads, typically they're talking about 6-star full melt live heads that you could treat the same way you would rosin. So you'd be able to put it in a banger and it would melt cleanly, it wouldn't burn, leave a lot of residue. The bubble hash that we're making from cured material in use is more closely related to like keef. We mostly use it to church up joints, put on top of bowls, infuse our pre-rolls. It won't fully melt if you put it in a banger by itself without pressing it into rosin. And usually live heads are a much more premium, expensive product. It's going to be more expensive than a gram of rosin would be, whereas the cured bubble hash that we release is much cheaper and mostly just used to infuse flour, that kind of thing.
Now, I know you're like one of the most like budget friendliest, you know, hash concentrates and all that on the market. Is there a reason why, or is it why you decided to keep it budget friendly compared to other competitors?
Well, for the cured releases in particular, that's kind of probably what you're referring to as being the budget offerings. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to price them the same as live. It's not the same quality material going in. It is great hash that comes out, but you know, you have to price it accordingly. You know, it's not the same. It's not the same material. It's not the same price as far as price per pound to acquire the material. So there's no reason for us to overcharge for cured material when, you know, we should just be, you know, we make a profit off of it and are able to release it at a better price. So that's what we do. Yeah,
because when I was in the cells, you know, and dispensary side, a lot of people asked that question, why? Because a lot of people there's like a very like small hash community here that's like very informed on what they're, purchasing and what's actually the process of it and the difference of live and cured and all that. But some people who's like new to rosin, like sure they want to do the healthier side instead of getting the BHO extracted concentrate. So a lot of people have a lot of questions. Why is there a difference, and what's the difference? Why does this say cured and this one says live and all that? But again, you're one of the very few that actually label that on their product.
Yeah, we try to be upfront about it. I mean, it's not something that we're trying to pass off or sneak off on anybody, So we want people to know that it's cured. It comes from cured material, but at the same time, that's reflected in the price. So that's kind of just part of the game. It's same with indoor and outdoor. You don't price indoor and outdoor flower the same generally, and if you are, that's kind of I don't know. That's not I don't know the most ethical pricing practice in my opinion, but
Yeah. Gotcha. So are y'all located here in Oklahoma, or in Oklahoma City?
Yeah, we're right here in Oklahoma City. We've been living here well before legalization in our company, but yeah, didn't move in or anything. We've been here, graduated high school in Choctaw, which is like a suburb of Oklahoma City, so been in the area ever since.
Now, before we finish up this podcast, is there anything you would like to say that we did not cover, or just let the listeners know?
I just wanted to add that soon we should have our own grow open, so we hope to be able to release a lot more live and a lot more of our own strains. I know a lot of people like single source, and we're really looking forward to be able to grow and grow and process the stuff that we're interested in. Release meds to the people as competitively priced as we're able to.
Yeah, basically, yeah, we have our garden that'll be opening anytime now, as soon as we get through the power upgrade and city compliance and all. But we're like 90% there, so hopefully within the next month or two, we'll be putting some flour in there and washing it up for hash.
So when you start doing the single source, how are you gonna make the decision on what I like phenotype as a strain and all that? Like, what's making you choose certain strains?
Sure. Well, the strains that we're starting with, a lot of them are going to be local strains from local breeders that we're, interested in, been following, and we've got some Toxie from Magic Bean Genetics. We've got some our Mr. Nasty Cut, obviously. What else are we popping over there?
A few strains from Shaggy Roots.
Oh, yeah.
And also Conjun Mick.
Right.
A couple strains from him as well.
Yep. So, yeah, we're, going to be able to just work all the phenos or all the strains that we haven't had a chance to, haven't had the space to work at our house. We've been growing solid at our houses for, forever, but we don't have the space to just grow as many strains as we will at our single source. So yeah, having that grow is gonna increase the number of phenos and strains that we can work through by quite a lot, and hopefully be bringing some unique stuff to the market. Yeah, we have our own crosses we'll be working through, and then some of the local strains from the local guys, and we'll be working some of the bigger name strains. We've got Triple Burger and some other papaya and stuff like that are hash strains that a lot of people work with, but we'll be trying to find our own cuts of those and offer hopefully our unique selections to the market.
I just want to say thank you so much for listening, and for Squishermen, Matt and James coming on to the podcast episode, dropping some knowledge about rosin and every product they produce. I really appreciate y'all coming on, and I appreciate the listeners as well. To follow Squishermen, their Instagram handle is the Squishermen. And then follow Aesthetically Cannabis, just Aesthetically Cannabis. Again, thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for more episodes.